What is up, guys? Welcome to the Rad Potential YouTube channel. We're going to talk about this right-hand drive FD and why the engine that was in this FD, which was blown up, is literally completely destroyed. So, the engine came to me, the car was missing real bad. We compression tested it, down on one hole, just one face. My guesses were correct. The one face being down, corner seal, side seal failure. Now, what I didn't expect to find, if you watched the previous video, coming into this, was two completely destroyed housings. Now, I had assembled this car with this engine, freshly rebuilt. It only had about, I think he said 8,000 kilometers or something on it. It's not that many miles. It's right-hand drive, so it's got the weird FD dash thing, but it's been together for about a year or so. Untuned for the new turbo. So when I put it together, I tweaked the tune enough so you could drive it around out of boost. And then basically, because the guy who drives the car drove the car pretty hard, and with it untuned, detonation, broke stuff. What I wanted to go over with you guys is really assessing these parts and telling you why we're replacing what we're replacing. Okay, so off the rip, apex seals, housings, completely trashed. If you saw in the last video, these apex seals are super grooved up. The housings super grooved up. You can hear how gritty that is. It's just not ideal. So housings, you can resurface them, but in this case, the goal of the car, we're going to put new ones in it and new apex seals. The failure point of this car was a broken side seal right here. See the chunk missing? And two broken corner seals. I didn't realize I had two broken ones, but I do have two. Dog was barking at the neighbors. So, we had two broken corner seals. Okay? It's not uncommon when you run these things lean to cook the corner seals. It's not uncommon when you have detonation for this to find the weakest point and break stuff. And when you have these unbreakable apex seals, what's the next thing that's going to break? You're either going to dent your rotor or you're going to break a side seal or a corner seal whenever you have detonation. So, we also dented the rotor. Not horribly, just right here. You can probably see it in the camera and you saw it already. So, a lot of that stuff is not necessarily news to the guys that watch the channel, but this next part will be. So, I made mention of it, but didn't look at it super close. These irons have been used in quite a few engine rebuilds, okay? The engine was obviously tore apart and rebuilt to have the half bridge port, the hasty half bridge port done, which none of us had any part in doing. It's already done when Richard bought the car, or bought the car that the engine came in. And being that these irons have a lot of miles on them, there is some step wear. And step wear is basically where the rotor seals ride on the iron, you will wear it down, and the edges, you can see the edge where the corner seal and the side seals don't ride, you'll start to get a step. Okay, now hear that? That's a pretty solid lip. Okay, seeing some of these marks, you might think, man, that thing's wore out, but my finger doesn't catch on these marks, right? It catches real bad right here. And it's like that on pretty much all the irons. You can also see on this side some evidence of where that broken corner seal, or not the broken corner seal because they stayed in, but the broken side seal kind of scratched this thing up. And the port is just, it's not how you should port this, guys. So if you need irons to practice your porting on, go find some that are wasted. Practice your porting before you actually do it, or have somebody teach you, because the edges are too rough. They're not cleaned up. The inside of this is completely just, it's rough as heck. It's just not the best port job, and I was hoping that I'd be able to clean that up. I have like a Pineapple Racing template. I can put that on here and try to match the ports better to the template without really exceeding the limits of the template. But I'm just not stoked about that. And then also too, I mentioned this in the previous video, but I didn't really show it. See this scribe mark right here? from somebody wanting to port the primary port bigger, but never did. Doesn't look like this port's been really cleaned up or touched at all, which is good for this iron because it's not ruined because of the port, but it's bad for, you know, horsepower. The other thing is you can kind of feel or see that the lip of this port has been, it's just chewed up a little bit. So I don't know if the side seal piece got in there and tore it up. That would be the side that broke, which was it the gear side? No, it wasn't the gear side. We broke the side seal on the center iron side, which was here. So this is kind of where that broke versus the edges on the rear iron, but it could have just played ping pong in there. So I don't really like that. And flipping this over, you've got the same mark on the iron, and it's not even in the same place. You can see that this port mark is further back than the other side of the center iron. So I'm just not too stoked on these. The edge wear, step wear is the same. You hear it. And then we hop over to the front iron, and you can see the port job's just a mess. And it's better than the rear one, I'll tell them. It's at least like mildly an arched curve, but see, look how close he gets to the coolant jacket here. That's a big hump, you know, and the same thing. The port just does not feel good on the inside. Sharp edges still. And I'm just not happy about that. So, and this has a good gouge right here. So, the rotors, I inspected them. They're fine other than the small dent. And I think my advice is going to be, let's find another set of irons. You know, if the goal for the car was just a ripper drift car, track car, where you're just going to beat the crap out of it, then maybe we run these irons. But at the same time, if we're going to do that, then we might as well put these apex seals back in and run these housings, because it's not going to be that happy compression-wise with these irons. And those ports are probably just going to catch a seal and break something, especially if you're kicking the rods out of this thing, so to speak. So as far as the rotor seals, what we're going to replace on the rotor seals, I am only going to spot replace the seals on the rotors. So we're going to do new apex seals. Always replace your oil control rings if they come off the rotor. If you take this out, replace the rubber O-ring seal. It will smoke if you don't. So we're going to replace the oil control ring rubbers. The oil control ring housings and springs and stuff are all good. I'm going to replace and re-clearance the one side seal. I'm also going to recheck the clearances for all the other side seals, and if they're too big, I'm going to replace those as well. These side seals and corner seals were brand new when this engine got put together, and I bet if I checked them against, if you haven't heard of this book, are you chilled out, huh? Can I start filming again without you barking at something that's up in the woods for the last 10 minutes? Good? Okay. Man, she found something up there, the dog. Okay. Anyways, the rotary engine, book of overhaul criteria, stuff this, that, and the other. You guys saw me, I made a video on this book already. This is the book that will tell you if a used seal inside your engine is still within spec. So I'm going to go through all these side seals and check them, make sure they're within spec, make sure all the corner seals are within spec. And my guess is, because this engine had low runtime, albeit hard runtime on it, that all of this stuff is still going to be within spec and we can reuse it. There's no sense in spending another, you know, $500-600 on new everything that's right here when all of this stuff is good, okay? Now, we're going to replace the corner seals that are broke. We'll replace the side seal that's broke, and I'm going to replace the side seal spring from the one that's broke. Other than that, largely a lot of this stuff is going to be reused, and we'll put it back together on these rotors because all this stuff is cut to fit these rotors. Now, what is all this going to cost? Okay, and this is why I want to try to convince my buddy to not reuse these irons. We're going to spend a solid $3,000, maybe $4,000, including my labor, to put this engine together. Okay, you're looking at new housings, probably $1,500 for a pair of them. A new set of apex seals. iRotary apex seals aren't cheap. I think they're like $600. So right there, you're at $2,000. Plus the $300 or $400 worth of soft parts to put this thing back together. Plus the whatever I charge Richard for my time, which is not cheap. And before you know it, you've got the price of a new engine in putting this one together without even buying irons. And irons aren't going to be cheap either. And it's hard to put all this stuff together when you have a nice set of lightened and balanced XC Chips Motorsports rotors and you're going to strap some pretty clapped irons to them. So I get it. If we were going to find used housings, it had stock rotors, it was kind of just a budget rebuild. We're going to slap it together. But when you're going to spend $4 or $5 grand putting this engine together, $5 grand gets you a brand new one from Mazda. So why not buy a brand new one? You know, that's where I'm at. And if you're already buying new housings, why not just buy a new engine? So the only thing you don't get with buying one of those engines is obviously the lightened and balanced rotating assembly. And the side clearance stuff and all this, that, and the other. But a stock REW can take a beating, guys. They're good engines. They're strong. They got a big dowel landing. And I don't think that the turbo that we're going to put back on this car is going to make enough horsepower to torch one down. So that's where we're at on this. It sucks that I can't turn this engine build around very quickly with all the parts and trying to get everything and source everything. To keep this car relevant for you guys, but I do have another car coming to the shop. I say shop like I'm a mechanic, but I really only work for like certain people. But anyways, I do have another car that I'm picking up tomorrow that's going to come to the shop. It is an FD. It's also a really, really, really nice FD, and it doesn't need an engine. So it needs some peripheral stuff, and I'm excited to teach you guys about them. I've worked on these cars before the channel, the FD stuff with stock twins and all that, and they're kind of tricky, and I'm excited to kind of show you guys some wherewithal around those and move, I guess, not really away from this car for now, but we're going to step away so we can get parts ordered, and then in a couple weeks, when everything shows up, we can just hop right back to building this engine, because this car still needs to go to Deals Gap this year. And as you can see, we got no engines. So we're going to need to pick up some SR20s before Race Wars, you know? Because maybe an SR20 would be more reliable than a rotary. But with that, guys, I hope you learned something from this video. I kind of wanted to just go through this with you and then give you a little bit of a reason why the car is going to disappear for a little bit. We're going to work on some other stuff. So I did go film a little bit of some driving footage in the RX-8. I'm going to tack that on at the end of this because my camera got wigged out and I hit a bug right in the middle of the lens, and I kind of only got like 2 minutes footage. So I'm going to put that in here right now, and then we're going to roll out, go get the other FD this weekend and start tinkering on that, and you guys will learn some stuff about the more complex engine bay of an FD. So thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you guys very much for the support on the videos, the FDs, the RX-8s. I'm glad you guys are enjoying them. Glad you guys are watching them. Keep commenting. Let me know what you guys like to see. Comment any questions that you have on these cars and or on the cars that I'm working on the videos, and I can do my best to answer them for you. If you have problems and you need help, hit me up on Patreon. That's the best way to get a hold of me. So with that, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Keep it rad. You guys probably can't see the dog, but I reprimanded the dog. She was barking at something for 15 or 20 minutes. We went on a wild goose chase with assorted protective devices and flashlights. Couldn't find whatever she was barking at. And there she sits on the thing by the light, the wall, playing guard dog. But it is nice to have an alarm system here. Ain't nobody getting past the dog.